Hello, fellow traders. 'Tis I, the Rumpled One. Let's talk trading. It's January 20th, 2017. No Obama Day, as in no more Obama. I know this is trading, not politics, but I just had to throw that in there. I'm looking forward to the next 4 years. And hopefully, we'll have regulations or less regulations so we can trade. Get rid of that Frank Dodd, that just ruined, the small trader. But let's talk trading. Support, resistance, high lows. Now, support and resistance is a concept. The high and the low, that's a reality. You might say, well, you're just kind of splitting hairs, or you're doing something like, just changing what you call it. But the reality check is it makes a difference in your mind, in your mindset. So normally what happens is when you're looking for a support and resistance spot, you might do something like that. And you put a line there, okay? And you say, you see here, price came down and hit that line and kind of hit that area, and you see it did it here and here. So you'd say, hey, that's probably a pretty good support line. And then you might do it again. You come back and you grab yourself another line and you look at the chart, and maybe you stick it maybe right here, and you say, yeah, you see how price came there and hit that line a few times. And so so when it gets here, something's going to happen. When it gets here, something's going to happen. But that can be cumbersome doing it by hand. So I decided to code an indicator, and I called it TRO 2017 price action SR for support resistance. Now, what this indicator does, it's really simple. It starts with this bar and it loops back however many bars you tell it to. In fact, so I told it 50, and if you want to show the comments, you can. And you see here, so I'm using 50 bars with a threshold of 0, and I'll show you what that threshold will do in just a few minutes. So it loops back and it looks for any highs. If you start with the high, it'll look for a low that matches this high. You start with a low, it'll look for a high that matches the low. But after I made the first version, I decided to give you two options. What I just described I call the SR lines, and what I'm going to describe is the HL lines. Sometimes you get what's called tweezer tops or tweezer bottoms, where like right here or right here they're about the same. Well, see, that's a low matching a low. So you can turn those on or off in the indicator. So you see here, this plot on the weekly gave us some support resistance lines and some high low lines. And right here you can see there was a low at bar 20, which was also a low at bar 17. Here you had support, which was a low at bar 41, which at bar 19 became resistance. So it looks like it was probably right here and right there. So that's how the indicator works. And like I said, you've got plenty of options in here. You can turn off one or the other. So if you don't want to see the tweezer type lines, you can turn that to false. And you can see how the line styles are different. Now, in the original version, what I did was I gave this is dots. I'm sorry, this is a solid line, and then this one here 2 means dots. Okay, because if they happen to overwrite, if this line overwrites this line, then you can see it'll be blue and red dashes. It looks like that way you can see how many times they've been hit. pretty cool. And I was using it today and it worked out pretty well. Of course, you can drop it down a few time frames because usually you might start on the weekly, you draw some horizontal lines, then you drop down to the daily, you draw some more, and maybe even H4, you draw some more, and some people might even do H1. But the indicator does all the work for you. So you can see right here, resistance became support. So I will probably release this in batch number 2 of the TRO 2017 donational indicators. I think there's a few more things I might do to it, because if you look at it really close, you can see here that they overwrote. So I'm thinking maybe what I should do is just dump the values in an array, and if it's already in there, then we'll just do it once. But I'm hesitant to do that, or maybe I'll make it a user option, because when I see this, that means, hey, you know, this area's been used more than once, so it's probably a good area. Now, the other one is I might have to put the crisscross code in there, but I'm thinking I don't want to do that either, simply because you want to see where these lines are. It doesn't matter if they've been cut before because they're still good. So that's the TRO 2017 price action SR indicator. Now, what you can do is, if you combine that indicator with the TRO dynamic SR, you can see these dots really tell the tale. So that's what I've been working on lately. And the other thing is, you know, I've probably talked about it before about focusing on one pair, focusing on one method, because I have a bunch of methods. I mean, I was talking with the trader today. It's like I started out with the buy zone, and then I came up with the high top bottom low, which we now call the wick zone, and then the rat zone, and somewhere in there I came up with the ATR zones. So there's lots of different methods. I have the dynamic support resistance, just, you know, a multitude of ways to trade. You know, simple, the weekly crossover, the daily crossover, daily open, weekly open crossovers. Simple methods, but the thing is, if you don't pick one and stick with it and become profitable, then you're going to start just taking this trade here and that trade there, and your results are not going to be very consistent. And the other thing, once again, you know, working on that greed, working on the I could have had, if I only stayed in longer, once again, those thought patterns will destroy your account. The thing is, it's like, hey, I entered the trade, it was successful, I took my pips off the table, and I'm happy. And so what if it ran another 100 pips? I mean, that happened to me this week, but hey, you know, that's just the way it is. In fact, it happened twice to me this week. I had a trade on, I took it off, took my profit, ran 100 pips up. I had a trade on, took my profit, ran 100 pips down. Different pairs. But that's just the way it goes sometimes. When I set out for that trade, I wasn't setting out to make 100 pips. That's not my trade. It's not the way I trade. Oh, I just remembered. I was going to tell you about the threshold. Almost forgot. What the threshold in the indicator will allow you to do is, rather than the prices having to be exact, you can say, I want them within 2 pips. And you can see how many more lines came up. But it's not really helpful to do it on the H1. That would be more on the W1 or the weekly or the monthly or perhaps the daily, where you know, the high and low might just be within a couple of pips. So like you can see here, we had a low, we had a high that hit it, a high that was probably within a pip or two. Maybe this one, I don't know if that's within a pip or two. But that's what the threshold is good for. And once again, you can see here, when you get this kind of congestion, you say, hey, you know, that looks like resistance. Hey, that looks like support. So, and obviously, that's what happened here. You know, we can check another pair, good old pound dollar. Well, you can see all that resistance over the last 50 days because we're using 50 bars. And the reason I picked 50, 10 wasn't enough. 100 was too much. So I just said, okay, how about I try 50? So that's how that works. So, and then you can change the threshold, you know, to whatever. But I found out that, you know, this gives you, the trader, maximum flexibility. You can fine tune the indicator, you know, go back 50 days. Maybe you want to go back 250 days. And once again, that would be a year's worth of trading. 50 weeks times 5 days, trading days a week, and there you go. You can see them. There it is. And isn't this interesting? You see what happens between these gaps? That's price action right there. So that, I think, wraps up about the price action SR indicator. And like I said, you know, I'm probably going to just keep hammering on this, but focus. You know, one pair, one method, be profitable. Don't worry about what you could have had, so long as you're taking pips off the table. That's what matters. Small accounts, focus on the percent return. Larger accounts, you have to decide, are you trying to grow the account or are you trying to produce income? If you produce income, focus on the money. If you're looking about growing, focus on the percent return. And that's the way I do it. Of course, you know, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So that's just, you know, my humble opinion. I know what works for me, and that's pretty much all that matters to me. And just for the record, there's some, you know, people out there on different sites, you know, still trying to drag my name through the mud. I don't know. I don't know these people personally, so I don't know why they do that. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, it's like they got something against me. I mean, hey, did they send me money and I didn't give them what I said I would do? I mean, did I promise them something and not come through? I mean, it's just these attacks. It's just mind-boggling. I just don't know where these people come from or why they do it. What they think they're gaining by, you know, trying to, you know, put me down, drag me through the mud, call me names. You know, really, none of that's necessary. If you want to discuss and debate and argue over a trading method, fine. Let's talk about that. Let's stick to the method. But, you know, to talk about somebody's character or call them a name just because you don't like what they said or you don't agree with their presentation, I mean, that's just childish at best. It's just ridiculous. No, I don't lose any sleep over it, but it's just the type of thing where, you know, reputations follow you for life, and if somebody reads something and they think you're a bad guy, then everything you do is going to be filtered through those bad guy, you know, goggles, and they'll take something innocent and say, see, look at that, he's doing something bad. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, you know, I guess that's like life, because it doesn't matter, you know, it really doesn't. It's not what you trade, it's how you trade it. So this is TheRumpledOne signing off, wishing the best for President Trump, and hopefully we'll all get to drain the banks.